All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It's the 757 Battle of the Beers, the home edition. So I hope you're comfortable, have a beer in hand. And our panel discussion today is the state of brewing in the 757. I'm your host, Jeff Mazie from Beer Magazine and Virginia Craft Beer Magazine. We're joined live on the internet today by Eric Tennant, who's not a tenant, but the actual owner of Benchtop Brewing Company. Say hello, Eric.
Howdy.
No, they need us support.
We're also joined, just sitting in now, Jim Lantry from Big Ugly Brewing Company in Chesapeake, Virginia. How's it going, Jim?
It's going great. I'm surrounded here with 757 goblets, chalices.
Very good. The taste of victory for someone to be revealed later today at 5:30. And we're also joined live by Greg Fleetheart. You may know him from Precarious Beer Project as a head brewer, and he begins on Monday a new gig at Proximity Malt. It's selling malt to all the brewers, something he knows something about. Joining us also in a few minutes, he's stuck in traffic, Russell Tinsley from Ouzelfinch Beers and Blending. So we'll get the conversation started, gentlemen, with we're in the midst of a pandemic, as you know, and when COVID-19 first struck the entire country, and Russell's now joining us, the predictions early on were quite dire that breweries, half of them in America would go out of business, but as things have progressed, that has not been the case whatsoever. So I'm wondering, first of all, Eric, what have you seen? What has been the key to success in terms of surviving this pandemic as a small independent craft brewery?
I would say number one has been shifting gears to basically, initially we had to package all of our beer. The draft accounts basically went away. So had to start putting everything into cans. It has started to come back in, obviously, as things have started to open up a little bit. But now everybody's, looking at, are there going to be cans and in that whole conversation? But it's basically packaging more beer and also a little bit of a more pressure to package different beers all the time, not flagships so much.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Jim, out in Chesapeake? Big Ugly Brewing Company seemed to do pretty well during the pandemic, the times that I've come through on curbside pickups. What's been key for you guys out in Chesapeake?
I kind of going to echo what Eric said. I think it's been a lot of canning, crowlers, and we just started our canning runs, initial canning runs at the time of the shutdown. But we've really, really been struggling because our business dropped, even with the canning, about 60 to 70%. But the area folks around here kept running through the parking lot buying packaged beer, which really kept us alive.
Mm-hmm. Greg, over at Amber Ox, as well as Precarious, you guys are both a restaurant, technically a brew pub, I suppose, at Amber Ox. So you have a little bit different setup than the other breweries that we just talked to. What was your experience at Precarious and the taco bar and all the games, as well as Amber Ox?
Well, we obviously had to shut down inside for a long time. We took the games away for a long time. They just returned. We took those games away just for safety reasons. And then initially, we moved everything to package. We had a bunch of beer at the Amber Ox that we actually printed out like special labels for and moved the canning line over there and canned off those tanks. So we put everything we had into cans. And then our production schedule was based on beers that we're going to put in cans. So we were much less interested in like new novel beers that we've been doing for a long time. That's kind of that was our MO. Mm-hmm. We moved towards a kind of a greatest hits, lineup of beers that people were really interested in. That really brought people to us to get those cans because they knew that they had the value there. They knew they liked the beer. They were putting their dollar where it really mattered. And then we also had the ability to do these crazy like specials with tacos, specials with, take home fried chicken and all that sort of fun stuff from the Amber Ox and Curious Beer Hall. So we had the ability to kind of combo everything and make it really worth your while to come by and pick up curbside pickup. And we were running stupid specials sometimes. Like you basically got a free 4-pack of beer with the purchase of a full set of wings. So I mean, it was a good way to kind of get people interested in what we were doing, realize that we can service them in a really great way, and then they kept coming back for more.
Yeah, very good. Russ at Oozlefinch, you guys shut your tasting room down and you serve sort of right out the front door, and you have an enormous space here at Fort Monroe. How did you all adjust to the new restrictions that the governor laid out?
Give me 1 second. Sorry, I'm sitting over here with Jim, and I'm getting feedback through the mic. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you good.
All right, cool. Sorry about that. Yeah, I kind of missed half of your question there because we started getting feedback in here. But were you just asking how we made it through COVID, or what we're doing different?
Through COVID, and you all shut your tasting room down and serve beer, just straight out the front door there.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, when it all hit, we didn't really know what we were going to do. I've got an awesome team of folks working for me. We all sat down, put our heads together. The one thing we knew we wanted to do is keep everybody safe as we possibly could, which is why, as you know, you're there now. You can see we're still shut down inside to the public, and we're only serving outside. And but we started brainstorming different ideas. Obviously, one of them led to the virtual festivals that we did with Hot Culture, and a lot more of our stuff, just as everybody else here, went into package and focused more on distribution spread and where that's going to go, during COVID. But yeah, we've had some good success with the festivals. We've had great success with just the community coming out and supporting the brewery. With to-go orders or to sit out in the field and hang out and have some beers, and also success through distribution. So,
yeah. Well, you mentioned the virtual festival, and your festival was really inspiration and a model for what we're doing right here today. So I'm wondering, do you see additional virtual festivals of this nature being something that will happen in 2021?
Yes. I mean, the amount of work that went into just being able to do what we're doing right now. I mean, you're talking 3 months of work just to get it nailed down and figured out for the first time around. And now doing this with you guys, Battle of the Beards, has been a heck of a lot easier for the team, just knowing what to expect and how to move forward. But I think, honestly, it's a new piece of the game that folks haven't grabbed a hold of yet. And I do think that moving forward, you will have a mix of virtual and physical festivals. A way to take beers that are going to be in those festivals and put them in folks' hands, in 10 different states across the country. So I think it's if people aren't doing it later on, it's a massive miss as far as revenue is concerned.
Yeah, Greg, one of the things that the governor has put out and allowed cities and municipalities to do is sort of expand outdoor seating. And that was one of the challenges I know for Amber Ox up in Williamsburg. How has that helped the business survive for a brew pub?
It was crucial for the Amber Ox. The beer hall we always had a lot of people coming in for the beer. And even when we moved to the COVID restrictions, we're seeing a decent amount going out of package, and tacos are a little bit easier to pick up and a little bit cheaper. So dining has always been such a huge part of Amber Ox and the service experience there. So being able to go out on the street and have almost the same amount of seats that we had inside previously was a huge game changer for us. It kept the doors open at Amber Ox. It kept revenue coming in and kept people employed. And it continues to be something that's really a positive impact. And we can keep people more separated inside, more people separated outside. So it's a lot safer for everyone. And you still get that great Amber Ox experience with the service and the cocktails and the wine that we're known for.
Yeah. Eric, at Benchtop, you took this opportunity to sort of expand your patio out back and expand the sort of cafe seating out front as well. So what went into your thought process and how you wanted to expand that, but also have parking available for your guests?
Well, we were thankful that last summer we put a 1,100 square foot covered patio on the brewery that kind of kept us alive. And then we took that a little bit further now, and we've got a a beer garden extended into the parking lot, which was fortunately is part of our leased space. So we basically are giving up half of our parking in order to have more seating. But that was kind of a no-brainer for us, get some extra tables, buy some, rent some, and that's helped. It's definitely helped with revenue to have more of that, because our inside, I mean, it's still pretty minimal.
Mm-hmm. Jim, at Big Ugly, you all have a large patio and fire pits already, and a good-sized property there where you can really expand. How did you sort of utilize that even and enhance those experiences outside?
Well, Sean was fortunate enough to be at Home Depot when they had a truckload of picnic tables and umbrellas that were being unloaded, and he bought as many as he could fit in his truck and bring back. So we expanded the outside area with more tables, more seating. We've done a few things on the inside. I'm sitting on the mezzanine right now, our second floor that went in during the shutdown, not really planned part of that. But we put some fans in here as well. We're fortunate that we have 30-foot ceilings in here. So we have a lot of ventilation, natural ventilation here, and the fans keep the air movement going. And as a medical professional, I'm keenly aware that one of the problems with COVID is stagnant air and poor ventilation. So we tried to improve that by keeping a lot of air movement inside the place.
Yeah, very good. As you gentlemen know, winter is coming, and that presents new challenges in terms of the outdoor seating. Have you given any thought to that? And I'll let each of you answer that individually. Some of the cities are going to be offering some, I guess, some financial incentives to allow restaurants and breweries to sort of winterize their outdoor patios. Let's start with Russ at the top of the screen here.
Yeah, I think for us, mainly just as far as, keeping everything going and the momentum we have going, we're focusing a lot on distro. We spread out we just went into 14 different states now, and we signed throughout California last week, and we've got 3 or 4 more distributors lined up. And so for us, it really is more about focusing on our distribution footprint and kind of using that as our primary source of revenue. As far as the taste room goes, there's a couple different options that we're looking at. We don't know if we're going to do some igloos or some type of container seating area outside is kind of the thought process now for the winter time to get folks an avenue there. But for us, we're gonna make it work through distro and that footprint. And we've got 2 new tanks that are coming in middle of October, so we can keep spreading that distro footprint further and further. So that way we're not reliant on the tasting room as much.
Mm-hmm. And Greg at Precarious and Amber Ox, what is the plan as you know it?
I know we're going to continue to move towards distribution with our awesome distribution partners. We have 3 distributors right now. Pretty Ugly, Reverie Distribution for Northern Virginia, Richmond and North, and then Cold Craft for North Carolina, most of North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
So those channels still have room to grow, so we can continue to give beer to those people in excess of what people are consuming in the tasting rooms. I know that some of our busiest months are in the wintertime, so that will change obviously because of tourism is going to go down, going to be down, but it is picking back up in Williamsburg. So we are anticipating a fairly busy season inside as long as the COVID restrictions don't change too much.
Right.
I think it's always just going to be completely, it's always going to be a target all after the job.
Mm-hmm. Eric, how about you at Benchtop?
Well, just the other night, it got cool enough to where we almost rolled our propane heaters outside to the patio, and then we pumped the brakes and said, wait a minute, we put those heaters out there. People are going to huddle around them. That's not really an option these days.
Right.
So we're in the process of trying to price out enclosures for our patios and overhead heat so that people can still remain at their tables but have the heat coming in. we're hopeful that there's some incentives through Open Norfolk that might help us finance some of that, because we're kind of bracing for much lower revenues through the tasting room. Our distro is what it is, and we don't have any lack there. But yeah, we're definitely having to think outside the box, and we built this, nice modern open covered patio, and now we're trying to figure out how to close it in. So it's it's definitely a curveball.
Yeah, and closing it in also, it keeps the heat in, but it prevents the airflow that Jim was talking about as well. I know you guys have been to O'Connor Brewing Company and have the large overhead gas propane heater that's spread out over those long festival tables. Jim, how about you at Big Ugly? How do you plan to go into winter in terms of winterizing it and making it to where your local customers down the street can actually enjoy a beer outside during winter?
Can you hear me?
Can hear you now.
I don't think we're planning on doing at this point anything outside different. We're not going to try to wall it in or close it up. We do have the 2 fire pits out here. We're fortunate in this part of the country that we get an extended fall. It doesn't really get too unbearably cold outside until maybe mid-December, and then you've got a couple months where it's going to be untenable to go outside. If we can just maintain 50% inside, our business will be okay. We'll survive through this.
Mm-hmm.
I heard a guy on TV saying this is all going to go over really soon, so we're really just counting on that.
Well, I have a vaccine trial in this cup here, so
there you go.
I'll share it with you. Let me ask those of you that have live music at your brewery, what has been the sort of impact? Have you, Jim, at Big Ugly, have you had fewer acts? Are you looking for more just a singer-songwriter type? I know you have the blues as well, I think once a month too, right?
That's the Blues Jam is the only thing that has multiple members for the most part. There may be 1 or 2 duos that come in here, but for the most part, it's almost always a single guitar player. Those poor folks have been hit really, really hard, and we're trying to bring them back in. Most of the bars, even in the ones that are accepting musicians now, I'm told they're only paying 50%. Because they can only have 50% capacity. So they were completely out of work for months, and trying to get as many of them back in here as we can, just keeping some distancing around where they play.
Sure. Any of the rest of you that have live music in any capacity?
Well, it's definitely slowed down we've had concerts since COVID, but it's been few and far between. I can't speak to the strategy moving forward with it. It's difficult to maintain those. It's difficult to maintain social distance when people get a couple beers in them and they want to start dancing. And so I think from a managing the risk standpoint, it's quite difficult. So I'm not sure what Precarious is going to be doing moving forward, but I know there will be probably live music. But I can't imagine it's going to be as often as we were doing it before, which was 3 times.
And Russ, you've had Jenna Dalmas and the Heartbreakers as well. I guess that's right.
Yeah, the Heart Wreckers or something like that. Yeah, we honestly have. We're fortunate, like you said earlier, to have that large space outside. So we have a stage out there that we've had since we opened, and so we've been keeping regular schedule of bands coming. We ensure that everybody is at least 15 feet away from each other in the field, and that we've kind of asked people to do that, and folks have been really, really, really good about just following the social distancing guidelines that we put in place to include the governor. So we haven't slowed down as far as music goes. However, after last weekend and how cold it was, it definitely had us looking at the schedule, seeing when we're actually going to cut that music off. At the beginning of COVID too, we partnered up with Red Stapler, who they're always at Ouzel Finch. We have them once a month, and probably one of our bands that we would consider our home kind of feel band. And but they were doing live music for us throughout the winter last year, or this early this year. And we would put stuff up so people could Venmo them tips, and they did pretty good doing that. And for us, it was a way to just connect with the community, even though everything was shut down. And so that's what we ran with. I could easily see us going back to a virtual thing like that, and allow the bands to come in, make some money via tips, and but still allow us to connect to that community base that we have.
Mm-hmm. Our panel discussion today is titled "The State of Brewing in the 757," and obviously COVID has thrown a big monkey wrench in that. But prior to COVID, back in January and February, how were you feeling about 2020 before it all hit? Were you on track? Did you have big goals that you were going to achieve this year? And if you can share with us, what those big plans might have been. We'll start with Jim Lantry this time.
Our biggest thing was to get the mezzanine in, which we did, but we haven't really been able to fully utilize it because we're at 50% capacity. So that was our big project for this year. Revenue is one thing. I'm just happy we're still in business and going strong, but it certainly is not going to be the year we hoped. I have to put that vacation house, the Outer Banks, off for another 10 years, I think. And I might have to work my other job a lot longer because my 401k took a nosedive. So, there could be worse things. But, it's not been the year we'd hoped for sure.
Yeah. Eric, how about you at Benchtop?
Well, we had really been kind of pursuing some options for other locations and things like that COVID we pumped the brakes real quick when that happened. So we decided to kind of look internally, and so we're adding 6 new tanks next month to try to really increase our capacity for how much beer we can make. So that was we kind of changed gears a little bit, but I think it's going to be pretty good for us.
Eric, when you said other locations, were you seeking to move out of the Chelsea neighborhood in Norfolk, or are you talking like satellite tasting room locations?
Yeah, we're not leaving Chelsea. I live about a quarter of a mile away, and we've put our heart and soul into that spot. Don't tell my landlord that, but we're not. That was not the idea. We're looking at other locations to be able to push more beer out, more cans, more drafts, that kind of idea, and maybe a smaller brewing system somewhere else. So, we'll see what 2021's got in store for us.
And a follow-up to that, Eric, were you thinking sort of the smart mouth plan of opening a second location in Virginia Beach, or out by Jim and at Big Ugly? Or are you thinking Richmond, Northern Virginia? What were those other markets or neighborhoods you were looking at?
Yeah, we were looking at this spot right beside Big Ugly. No, I'm just kidding. We're like, well, we'll go straight ahead. No. Yeah, we looked at the beach. We looked at Richmond. We looked at Nova. The beach is probably the closest thing, but at this point, we're really turning our sights inward and focusing on improving our current space and our current capacities.
Yeah. How about you, Greg, up at Precarious and Amber Ox?
Well, we were planning on just producing more beer. We have more capacity. We are not using our capacity to its fullest right now. So that's more of a man hours, days of the week situation rather than the tank capacity situation. So we probably produce almost 100% more beer than we're producing right now. And COVID really obviously took a hit to getting that to that level, because we did an expansion with tanks this past year that was pretty sizable. So COVID definitely put a stop on or slowed down our growth in terms of barrelage. It's starting to pick back up. The distributors are wanting more beer. Our taproom sales are going up again. And then there was a expansion project that we started right before COVID hit that was moving into a suite right next to us on the beer hall. which
Okay.
it's going to be more like we're going to put all the video games in there and make it like an arcade in itself.
Mhm.
And then that allows us to move the brewery out a little bit into what was kind of the arcade corner. And there can be a sour program, barrel program there. And then it also gives us much more space for people to be. So even with 50% capacity limitations, pretty soon here, they'll be able to have quite a few more people in the building because it's just bigger now.
Yeah, very good. Greg, you personally have you start a new job, as I mentioned earlier, at Proximity Malt as a rep. Was that sort of career change in the works before COVID? Did COVID lead to that? What can you share about your new job and why?
It was an opportunity that arose through proximity, through some friends, through a friend that I had there. And I was looking, that would always been kind of my retirement plan, was maybe getting into sales for like a malt company. Specifically, proximity was who I was hoping to be a part of. And the opportunity came along actually for a Northern California sales rep position right before COVID. And I couldn't make it work financially. And that was a big motivating factor for me too, was financial fluidity. And I made such great connections here and the people here and the community. So I actually turned that one down. And then when Keith Fink, who was the sales rep before me, got a really cool opportunity with a friend of his doing digital marketing, he reached out and they reached out and they offered me the position, and it made a lot of financial sense. It's a really great company. The product's amazing. I used it exclusively for 3 years plus. So it just made a lot of sense that everything fit together. And Precarious was, we have some really good people in place there that can kind of take it over and move seamlessly with my absence. So it wasn't a perfect time to move on. I was thinking maybe that retirement plan would be a few years down the road, but it was an opportunity I just couldn't say no to.
Yeah, well, congratulations and best of luck on that. And your territory will be the Mid-Atlantic, is that correct?
Yeah, so it'll be DC, Virginia, Delaware, and Maryland.
Okay, very good.
So it'll be a really cool opportunity also to go see all the friends that I've made in this industry and talk shop and trade beers and bring samples of delicious malt to munch on, which is brewer's breakfast basically.
Yeah. Russ, many breweries brewed a Black Lives Matter stout, and social activism is part of sort of your mission, it seems, from watching you on Facebook. I'm wondering about that particular beer, how you approached it as a business, and then also the breweries were allowed to sort of do variations and add ingredients and sort of make that original recipe their own. So can you talk about that particular beer as it related to Ouzel Finch?
Yeah, I think we were doing a collab with Marcus out there at Weathered Souls already when all this came out, and so we had decided that. I mean, we were pretty much in from day one. For me, I think that the Black Lives Matter movement is an insanely important one. I think that there are a lot of things that need to be fixed with our society as a whole, and I think that they're dead in the middle of what's right. For me, it was a little difficult because my background, I was a narcotics detective before this, so a lot of police officers come to my bar, but I also support Black Lives Matter, and honestly, it just comes down to being on the right side of history, and I think that that's where we are. And we have an obligation to help as much as we can and to educate and spread the word. And so we have taken every opportunity that we could to get involved. We did that collab with Weathered Souls. We took our FML beer, which we centered the whole festival around, and that was a collab with Weathered Souls as well that we changed to Respect My Life instead of FML. And so it's something that is very important to me personally. I can't say that every investor I have is on board with that movement, but for me at the time, it was just personal conviction and just what I felt was right, and so we decided to do it. Rachel took the recipe and kind of did her thing, and made an amazing beer that honestly we're very proud of, and sold out, within a couple hours of releasing it. So
Yeah. And Russ, being located at Fort Monroe, you're also uniquely positioned to sort of also talk about the Juneteenth celebration, and the first Africans to be brought to North America came ashore right here at Fort Monroe, a few feet from the
yeah.
brewery.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that, but 400 years ago last year, the first Africans were brought on a ship, as slaves, and stepped off of the ship onto Fort Monroe soil. Fast forward a couple hundred years later, during the Civil War, three slaves escaped from one of the Confederate bases across the Chesapeake Bay, floated over to Fort Monroe, which led to the general making the contraband decision. The contraband decision pretty much set up everything for the Emancipation Proclamation. Contraband decision basically made these men free, and started this precedent where it switched the end of the Underground Railroad from further north to Fort Monroe, and then by the end of the war, 10,000 contraband free slaves were living at Fort Monroe. So, Fort Monroe is called Freedom Fortress for us. We want to be able to connect with that, and we want to be able to educate and tell people, the significance of the base. But at the same time, we need to be living that as well with our community. And so, backing up or going back to the Juneteenth event, I think for us, it was more just to start a conversation and bring folks out to celebrate something that is right and good, and then also, like I said, bring in folks that may be from a different mindset or background, and start conversations that need to happen. And so for us, it's always been about being a conduit for those conversations. So that's my take on it, I guess.
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Russ, for sharing that.
Yeah.
Jim, over at Big Ugly, you all did a variation as well. How did you sort of alter or change the recipe for your version of the beer?
We actually did not brew that beer,
Oh, you did
only
not?
because we had so many dark beers already in the lineup that I couldn't really justify putting another one out
Okay.
there. We are going to be doing the I voted beer through Tired Hands. I don't know if you're familiar with that, which will be out first
Okay.
week in November. It's going to be an IPA. I think it's a pale ale IPA. It just has to be double dry hop. We haven't quite figured out a
Yeah.
recipe on that yet.
Greg or Eric, did you all do variations of the Black Lives Matter beer?
We didn't. Right, like a couple days before the Black Lives Matter stout collaboration came about, we had a double release of two stouts. Double too, you get that. But where we were contributing a portion of proceeds to ACLU. So we had like two like huge stout beers in cans and on draft at the time. So it's like it was pretty tough for us to add another one at that point.
Yeah, and I know it's a challenge when you have sort of limited fermenting capacity, and you already have a lineup of things already scheduled with the ingredients you have to pre-order to sort of switch gears sometimes. I can appreciate that. Greg, any input there on the collaboration?
Yeah, we had committed to brewing the Black is Beautiful Stout, and then right before we got around to actually producing it, we had a Black Lives Matter, peaceful Black Lives Matter protest come by the brewery, and then a lady engaged with them and assaulted one of the ladies by pouring her beer on one of the protesters who was also pregnant. So it was a big thing, and we reacted as soon as we can, and we got flack for how we supposedly didn't act, even though I think ultimately we did everything we could to make that situation as best we could. And then we put our money where our mouth is too, by continuing to brew this beer. Our proceeds went to where they needed to go, local ACLU. And we invited members from from the African American people of color community to help brew it with us. And we sat down and kind of had a panel with them as well about like how we can continue to engage in a positive way, and to help inclusion be a real thing for us. So what we did with that beer was we ended up taking a lot of hops out because it was a pretty aggressively hopped stout, and it was spring and summertime. So it was kind of a hard sell to brew a hoppy stout anyway.
Sure.
So we decided to take the hops on the Roman flavor side out, lower the bitterness a little bit, add lactose, and then we added like chilies and allspice, and kind of gave it more of kind of an island Caribbean vibe.
Okay.
The one thing I've taken away from my experience is the African American experiences. It's so varied. Everyone in the African American community is, so different, and their experience in life is different, and culture is different. So I wanted to try to do that, reflect that in the beer somehow. So I wanted to have kind of elements of all the different African American communities in that beer.
Yeah. When I've been to the Caribbean, I find a lot of the locals in Bahamas and Jamaica are drinking Guinness Extra Stout. So it's very popular. So stout is very popular with those communities down there. Earlier in our discussion, someone brought up the issue of cans. And at the Craft Brewers annual meeting, the Guild, the president, Brett Vassy, told me that one of the big challenges you all face are getting aluminum cans at this point. Have you all experienced any challenges on that front? We'll start with Jim Lantry.
We had a tremendous challenge right at the beginning of this getting crowlers. We had one pallet of crowlers, and we thought, well, that'll last for a while. Put an order in for another one. We were told it was going to be 2 to 3 months before we could get our crowler supply up. And we ran out of growlers. We couldn't get growlers, glass. We haven't had a problem with 16-ounce cans because we're going through Ironheart for our canning, and they seem to have a decent supply. But it was crowlers that were the problem. We went to this 16-ounce screw top can. Worked out actually fairly well, but we really had to hustle to find other alternative sources for crowler cans and growlers. It was a struggle. When you're doing all beer out the door and you don't have a package to put it in, it got to be a real pain.
Would you say that's because every brewery in the United States was experiencing the same thing?
That's exactly why. And, I can't tell you how many emails I saw. Hey, do you guys have any extra crowlers? Nobody had any extra crowlers.
Eric, how about for you at Benchtop?
Yeah, we had the same struggles with crowlers. We went from where we might have done less than 100 crowlers in a week to, we were just flying through them. So we were trying to figure out how to get more, and the lead times were crazy. So we were trying to order them and get ahead. And so we'd have a pallet in the back, and we'd have another pallet we had broken down into boxes that we were like stashing in our office or whatever we could do to try to make sure we had enough to get draft beer out. And then as far as the cans go, 16-ounce cans anyway, that's been, we haven't really seen the problem yet. It's kind of like the doom on the horizon right now. Everyone's saying that they're trying to get new plants up and running, and it might be sometime next year. So we're just kind of trying to hold on to what we can and make sure we have enough supply. So yeah, we haven't seen it yet necessarily, but we don't feel like we're through it by any means.
Yeah, it's a concern. Russ, you talked about expanding distribution, and you're doing so across the United States. For you, have you had to order, cans farther in advance than you would order, say, malt and hops and that sort of thing? And do you foresee that as being a challenge in terms of your goal of expansion beyond the Commonwealth of Virginia?
Yeah, for us, it definitely has been a challenge and is still a challenge. We can't use just any can. We specialize in sours. 4 of our 30-barrel tanks are going to be soured in the next couple weeks. We have 3 soured ones right now, and so I think for us, we've got to be a little more picky about what we're putting or what cans we're putting our beer in. The pH can affect the liner inside the can, which can give you some really horrible results if you don't have a can that can handle the pH of the solution. And so for us, it is we are stocking up as much as we can. I've anytime that our supplier has extra Crown cans, we've been buying anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 worth at a time, so we can keep everything going and just have enough to last us if we need it for another month or month and a half. So we are stocking up on it, and they know we're looking for them. And as soon as Crown or Ball comes in, we're grabbing them up and kind of sitting on them.
Yeah, very good. A special announcement here. The voting now will be extended until 5 p.m. That's 5 p.m. for those out there in the listening audience. 5 p.m. now will be the cutoff for the voting for the beers. Greg, beyond cans, what you're going to be selling, malts and other ingredients such as hops and all the rest are very important, and breweries order those in it far in advance. How, in terms of a supplier, what will be the strategy in terms of getting those orders sort of guaranteed that the brewers will need?
Yeah, I think when I was working with Proximity just as a customer, there was a good neighbor discount they applied where essentially it was a percentage of your order got taken out and applied to your shipping. So you're now looking at really reduced shipping costs. I think everyone's fighting for business. Everyone on the supply side wants to be the supplier. Proximity is very, very aggressive with that too. Like, our sales goals are very high. We want to be a part of the scene. And so I know with Proximity, I was calling or emailing an order before noon and I got it the next day.
Mm-hmm.
And it was $40 shipping for a pallet. So there's definitely incentives out there for, certain companies are really wanting to help out the brewers, especially with the Black Lives Matter and Black is Beautiful. There was tons of suppliers that were interested in donating. Roy Farms, Proximity, let's see who else. There was a number of other suppliers that were willing to contribute and give donations of supply. And I know that most suppliers are working with people on credit just to make sure that everyone is taken care of and we can continue to produce great beer.
Yeah. In just a minute here, we're going to take a couple questions from our audience. I've got one last question I want to get into you guys before we take those questions. American craft brewers have been pushing the envelope to the max in terms of ingredients, trying to find the most. There's a brewery in Denver that brewed the Rocky Mountain Oyster Stout that was the bull testicles in the beer, and that gained national attention. When Smartmouth right here in Norfolk did their Lucky Charms themed beer, that got a lot of attention nationwide too. I'm wondering, from the brewer's perspective, what ingredients and hybrids of hops, what's going to be the trend in terms of ingredients that's really going to get enthusiasts really excited here in the next year or so? What do you predict? What do you see? We'll start with Greg.
I think from the brewer's perspective, we're kind of done with that. I mean, we do it because it gets people involved, it gets people engaged. But if you look at the numbers, those extreme beers, you sell 10, 20, 30 barrels of that beer. And then the rest of your revenue is coming from more standard beers. I mean, probably, El Guapo is probably one of the number one selling volume-wise beers in Virginia. And that's not a crazy out there beer. It's just a good standard IPA. So I think we do it for fun, for engagement, for people to get excited about the brand and show that you're relevant. I don't think it's ever really going to take much more market share per brewery to do these really extreme beers, because the money is just not there in terms of revenue. I think we're all still doing, some really crazy stuff with sours. I think people are engaging with that. I do know that fruited sour sales seem to be falling, which is kind of in Virginia in general, which is an interesting trend. I don't know why that's happening, but maybe there's a palate fatigue there. I know people are starting to do more things with, lagers, which is a cool trend. I'd like to see that continue. So I don't know if extreme is going to continue as much as it has been. I think everything goes in a cycle. When you go extreme, it starts to come back down again to normalize. So I think we're kind of starting into that normalization phase, and then it'll be a few years and we'll see some really crazy stuff again.
Yeah. Eric, Benchtop is no stranger to odd and different recipes, whether it's a beet beer or something else. What do you think of all this in terms of, that sort of endless quest to find really unusual recipes and turn those loose?
Well, I mean, just like my previous life in innovation, the stuff that's kind of out there and really innovative and catches your eye, and that stuff has never been the stuff that pays the bills. It's the stuff that gets people excited. So some people come in and they try one, and great. Well, now they come in and try, our guacamole goza, and then they have 3 proven theories. So at the end of the day, it really differentiates you, and it helps push your brand forward, gets people excited. But when you make those beers with all those ingredients that cost that much money, you're really not making much money on those beers ever. But it's more about showing your commitment to innovation, and I think consumers appreciate that.
Yeah. Jim, to a slightly different angle on that, you've taken a very sort of beloved Rockers IPA, and you've done variations of that, like the Mango Rockers, which was really good this year. Do you see that being more the trend rather than new and unusual recipes, just doing variations of sort of fan favorites?
I think that's always going to be a thing that we do, only because you've got this base beer that's already a solid beer. So then when you experiment with it and bring different flavor profiles into it, now it's something completely different. I was going to say that the trend's going to be all proximity malt beers from now on, but yeah, Greg's hoping that that's the case.
You get 10% off now.
It's a great question, because every year we sit around for maybe the last 10 or 12 years, I have sat around my friends and we discuss what's the next big trend. What's it going to be? Last year we said it's going to be Pilsners. And I think you see a lot of breweries going back to Pilsners, trying to perfect the Pilsner and make a really good, light, crisp, clean Pilsner. And in all honesty, the lighter beers are our biggest selling beers, be it the Pilsner or the Blonde. Those are the ones that sell the best. I keep waiting and hoping that at some point we're going to see a renaissance of Saisons.
Okay.
That
Porter was on that right at the beginning too, wasn't he? Sort of. Yeah.
I think there's some great ones being made, and I'm hoping that kind of becomes a thing. The other thing is, my wife and I discuss this a lot, is West Coast IPAs. Everybody's doing a New England style or an East Coast, but I think the West Coast IPA is going to make a comeback.
Very good. Russ, you all are also a blending house here, and we have all these barrels at Ufelfinch behind me. That's a very Belgian thing to do. I've been to blending houses in the Lambic region of outside of Brussels. Is blending for Ufelfinch, is that something that sets you all apart, and is that something that you're really going to push in terms of innovation, sort of like a winery blends, red wines to produce a vintage reserve. Will you be doing the same?
Honestly, I think all of our blends that we do with our barrels are unique and really are kind of the pinnacle of what we're putting out. It's what Rachel is insanely passionate about. She loves to do barrel blends. The fact is, there's a lot of time and a lot of money that goes into blending, and so when it comes to revenue for us, it's probably 10% of what we do with that, and so 90% of what we do are the just American sours, Ghosts, Berliners, and I mean it's no secret we love adjuncts and we'll put all kinds of stuff in a beer, and for us it's worked out really well. We've been able to gain a pretty good following across the East Coast and now starting on the West Coast, and we've attracted some really heavy hitter distributors when it comes to the exclusive craft beer market. And so I think, and like Eric said earlier, the customers appreciate when you're innovative and you do things that other breweries won't do. And so I think we do kind of take that to the extreme at times. And we've got a beer in the tank right now that we modeled after. I was reading my son the Very Hungry Caterpillar book, and I'm like, this could be a freaking crazy beer. We should do it. And so now we're doing a Caterpillar beer that, we put all the stuff that Caterpillar ate into the beer. And it's just kind of a fun thing to do and keep it interesting, keep it fun, and grab some attention with folks that do appreciate stuff like that. And so, I would say our barrel program is like the best of the best and just kind of the pinnacle of what we're doing. And then, but we don't ever slack off when it comes to the other beers that we're doing as well. We'll spend, we spend a good amount of money on fruit, a good amount of money on ingredients, and but it has really paid off for us in the long run. I think we're big enough to where we can spread that out quite a bit and have those beers pay for themselves. So.
Very good. A Caterpillar beer. You've heard that. Maybe a fuzzy peach as an ingredient. I don't know. I'm going to ask our guy behind the scenes, Ryan, to put some questions up now from some of our listeners. And for our panelists, I'm going to read the question, and then whoever wants to answer it, or if many of you want to, just jump right in with an answer. This one's from Megan Jackson. Do any of you have a big event planned in the next few months? And if so, how do you plan to make it work? Jump right in with your answer, guys.
Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, we've got a couple. Black Friday is usually a pretty big release for us, so we're gonna be rolling out a rum barrel aged version of our Mortar's Void. So we think that'll go over pretty well. As far as execution of that, it would be the same social distancing, the same practices we always follow. Our anniversary falls in December, so that's a few months away. This year is going to be a little different. I'm probably going to get a larger heated tent and have less people in it, but that's kind of the name of the game right now. So that's what we've got on the horizon.
Yep.
Yeah.
Jim? Or
hang on, Jim, you're muted, buddy.
We have a couple things planned. So we have a Black Friday bottle release as well. Our Dark Journey, our barrel-aged robust porter. I don't know how it's going to be. Usually those events are a big party. We're still going to probably keep it at 50%. Hopefully the weather holds and we can open up the outside. The 2 weeks before that, October 14th, the day before Resolute Day, we've teamed up with Brothers Brewery, and we will be releasing Resolute on tap here, and one variant that we collaborated on as well. So that'll be kind of cool. I don't think that's going to be a huge event, but again, we got to keep it at 50%, and we just got to keep following the rules. It's not ideal, any of it, but it is. This is a weird year. We just got to get through this year, and next year will be a whole different story.
Very good.
Hey, can I add one more thing here?
Yes, sir.
So, one of the ways that we're attacking these releases, especially the ones that are quite anticipated, is all of our beers we are releasing online prior to the tasting room opening, so that we found that to be the best way, really, to mitigate the issues with social distancing. Is so people can go online. I mean, the beer might sell out before we open the door in a perfect world, but that way it really helps. You're not going to have the lines. You're not going to have people,
Right.
coming in crowding for the beer. So just want to put that in there.
Very good. Russ, you want to add something?
Yeah, I agree with Eric. We did the same thing with our releases where we put them all online beforehand, and to encourage people not to, stand around and wait. But yeah, I think that also with this virtual beer fest thing, we've done all the legwork for it, and it took us 3 months to knock out paperwork with every different state and all the crap that comes along with it. But we've got it nailed down to a T now, and I think we have a new hire at the brewery. Her name's Megan Jackson, who I think may have posted that question on here, but she is running all the festivals for us now, and so I've been able to be hands off with this one, and she's been taking care of everything and making that work. We have another one scheduled with Hop Culture called Beers Without Beards. Beers Without Beards, I think it's next week or the week after. All the packages will be going out this following week, and but we'll be doing Beers Without Beards with them. And honestly, for us, it's kind of looking at this model that we put together and then connecting with friends like, Precarious or Benchtop or Big Ugly, and giving them an opportunity to have their own festivals and send their beer out without, this beer Battle of the Beers. I don't think we really put our name on it at all, which is kind of the goal and the vision, is to let other people's visions be seen, and we'll just help kind of be the logistical middle kind of middle ground there. So I think for us moving forward through the winter and through COVID is helping friends with opportunities to have festivals and sell their beer in 10 different states, and also maybe scheduling and doing one of our own. So yeah, I think as far as events go, ours is probably going to be more centered around what we can do online.
Yeah, very good. Reminder to viewers, you have until 5 o'clock. That's 60 seconds from now to get your vote in. If you have not voted, you have 60 seconds to cast your votes. You can't complain about whoever the winner is if you didn't vote. So make it heard. Make it heard. Okay, Ryan, we have another question we need. This one is from Hollis Murphy. Hollis Murphy. Question is, how do you think the 757 stands out as a craft beer scene? Greg, we're going to let you answer that one first.
The first time I ever came to 757 and tried the beers, I was shocked by how consistently quality the beer was across pretty much every brewery. Coming from the West Coast, there seemed to be a higher proportion on the West Coast of breweries that were just complete duds, and you couldn't drink a good beer from them. But coming to the 757, I went to every brewery I went to, there was beers that I really enjoyed. So I think it's a young scene, which gives us an advantage because people are not afraid to go outside of their comfort zone, break rules, which I think is important. And the level of quality is, bar none, I think, some of the highest in maybe even this side of the Mississippi. So it's just consistently good quality, and everyone seems to want to continue to grow in quality too. So everyone, we have a Hampton Roads forum on Facebook where all the brewers ask questions, and we all try to improve, and we all calling each other and asking about process and ingredients and sourcing. Where do you get the best Cascade? Where do you get the best Citra? Like how do you make your hazies better? Water industry. So I think everyone are students still. We're all trying to learn from each other, and everyone wants each other to make better beer and continue that process. So I think that's unique. And we also have a lot of brewery owners that are also brewers, which I think is also very important. When you have a brewery owner who's that involved in the beer and has that experience and is hands-on and really seems to be invested, like actually managing that brewery, I think you get a really nice level of quality because it's not just an entity that owns it that's absent. It's really invested in where that brewery is going with their brands too.
Yeah, and you made some good points there, Greg. Early on, after SB 604 was passed back in 2012, one of the concerns that the Brewers Guild had were some of the breweries were not brewing really good beer, and as a result, that was hurting the sort of craft beer brand of Virginia breweries. But as you mentioned, we certainly don't have that problem here in the 757. Greg, you also mentioned it's a young scene, so I think the next person to answer should be the young man Jim Lantry there at Big Ugly. So, all yours, Jim.
Definitely the youngest guy in this group. It's a young scene in that we haven't been. This area has been brewing beer for a long period of time, but yeah, to get back to what Greg was saying, we collaborate a lot on different things. We may not collaborate on beers, but we all the people in this 757, I would like to think that we're all friends, and I could call any of them and ask for advice or grain or this, that, the other, and we will all help each other out, which is, I think it may be a little bit unusual, especially in certain areas where there's a whole lot of competition. I think the area that's making really great beer, and I still travel a lot around the different areas of the country, and I'm amazed at how good the stuff is right here. And, I appreciate that Greg said, the owners are involved, because that has always been a sticking point to me that, I got into this because I had brewed and home brewed, but we're still very involved in every beer that comes out of those tanks. And I think that's important. If you see it as a business, then you're completely removed from that. And maybe you don't care if the beer coming out of there is good or not. And the folks in this area seem really committed to making the best beer they can.
Yeah, good points, Jim. And part of that sort of collaboration and openness, I think we should give some credit to Kevin O'Connor when he started back in 2010. And as far as I know, he's done everything possible to help everybody in the community. And he wanted the entire culture of 757 beer to be exceptional.
He helped us. He allowed Evan and I, our head brewer, to go in and kind of pick his brewer's brains. He was opening to many other brewers in this area that allowed them to come in and work with them, and still is, as far as I know. And I could still go to Kevin and ask him anything, and he's always very helpful.
Yeah. Eric, would you like to? I think Eric's talking back there. Russ, we'll go to you. 757 beer culture. How do we rank compared to Richmond, Northern Virginia, in your opinion? Charlottesville, the Blue Ridge area.
Yeah, honestly, I think we're some of the best are here in the area for all the reasons that everybody else said. But also, we've always kind of been in Richmond's shadow and Northern Virginia's shadow, and I think it has really pushed us to try and place ourselves with some of these breweries that have this hype, and I think it's driven us to educate ourselves. It's driven us to make better beer, and it's driven us to, like you said, with the owners to be involved. And that's something that I didn't understand at the beginning of this whole thing, and when I started the brewery. But I can definitely tell you now, I've been in there learning how to do everything that the brewers are doing, and actually getting involved, and I'm having a lot of fun doing it. But I think it is what kind of sets us apart in Hampton Roads. When you go to all these different breweries, the owners are there hanging out. The owners are there involved. The staff is having fun, and they all get along. And so some of our best friends are Hampton Roads breweries, and it's just a dynamic that I think you don't really find in other places. We're not always constantly trying to one up each other, and And like these guys said, you can call any one of these dudes anytime. And I know I've driven stuff over for folks. People have driven stuff over for us when we need it. And there's never been, I mean, you usually don't have to ask more than 2 people if you need something, and they make it happen. And so it really is tight knit, and not just a tight knit family in each brewery, but tight knit overall between all the owners and the employees. And I mean, we're sitting over at Big Ugly right now. Jim is sitting right there, and all my staff is sitting down below us here with all the Big Ugly folks. And so, I mean, that's the kind of community that we have, and yeah, I think it keeps us educated, keeps us motivated, and drives us honestly to make better beer, and not only make better beer, but make a better experience for the consumer.
Mm-hmm. Eric, the question is on the sort of quality of the 757 beer scene, beer culture scene. Benchtop just won 2 medals at the Virginia Craft Brewers Guild Virginia Craft Beer Cup Awards. And in the recent past, Smart Mouth had one for Best in Show, and New Realm had one last year. Do you think winning awards at sort of statewide and national and international competitions, does that also signify the quality of our beer culture here in Hampton Roads?
I mean, definitely it's going to bring more attention to our area. You know, the awards are great. It's great to get recognition for the hard work that's put in. But at the end of the day, like what's been said before, the collaborative atmosphere in this area is kind of what makes it run. I mean, in my previous life as a meat scientist, everything was black box. Nobody shared anything, man. It was like hide everything. And it's completely different here. You know, we all want everyone to make better beer because that makes our whole area better. So I think that's really at the root of it. And then you just have, like Jim said, when you have the owners, you know, involved. I mean, it's not all about how much beer you can sell and how much money you can make. It's like we want to make the best beer we possibly can make, because that's what keeps you up at night, you know, to tweak and to have a passion for it. So I feel like there's a lot of that in our area, and that's pretty exciting for me. I think that's gonna push us forward, you know, and hopefully create some of that hype for our area. We'll see.
Yeah. Eric, we're so glad that you're no longer a meat scientist.
Well, you know, I mean, you got to pay the bills somehow, right?
I know. Ryan, do we have another question from our audience out there? Sean Fisher has a question. And if you don't know Sean, he's with the Beach Ambassadors. He's seated next to me. He'll be announcing here in a few minutes who the award winners are. But his question is, what is next in terms of brewer VIP or membership clubs? Any innovation coming there in this pandemic era? Any of you want to jump in? Go right ahead.
Yeah, I can tell you. Oh, go ahead. All right. Yeah, I think for us, it's more of a we're looking more at a kind of doing the along the same lines that the brewery does with their program, and you know, they'll have subscription, basically monthly subscription boxes. You know, we have the capability to send them out to 10 different states now, and I think for us, it's a opportunity to give people a piece of what you're not able to get, you know, unless you're local and you're on the scene at the breweries. And so for us, it's going to be focusing more on selling some of those more like intimate experiences through subscriptions, and basically box subscriptions throughout the year. So that's where we're headed with ours, and our mug club that kind of got screwed over during COVID. We're just promising them that when everything opens back up again, we'll let them finish that year and do the next year, and then we'll go from there. But that's what Easel Pinch is doing.
Jim?
we don't personally, or we're not changing our membership club or anything like that. But I will say, as far as trends go, there is a brewery now out in California, and you guys probably have heard of this guy, Brad Clark, one of my favorite brewers ever. Brewed at Jackie O's for years, started his own place, and his brewery is all membership. So unless you're a member, you don't get his beers. Apparently, he doesn't have a tasting room, but he brews so many beers a month, and he sends you your allotment, which I find that's very interesting. We're certainly not going to do that. But when you look at trends, is this going to be a trend? I don't know. It might be. It sure cuts down on your costs because you don't have to have a tasting room. You don't have to staff it. You just brew the beer and then mail it out at an exorbitant fee to different individuals, and I don't know. We'll see if that goes anywhere.
Almost like My Pillow, it can be my beer, right? Just... Eric, how about you?
I mean, for us, it's our membership programs involved a lot of draft discounts, which kind of went away early on in this whole scenario. So basically, we've just extended last year's memberships out until we can kind of figure out what next year's membership is going to look like. So we basically have extended everyone's benefits out through the end of the year, just so that we can kind of regroup and figure out how to make it worthwhile.
Okay, Greg, how about for Precarious Beer Project? Are you giving game tokens for pinball machines, or what are the perks of being in the club? What do you see coming up for VIPs?
There's always been the Draft Animals Club that's really popular. I think we have like 400 members or something crazy. But it's discounts on draft, discounts on package, discounts on all sorts of fun stuff, merch. And then you also get early access to our coveted beer dinners, which are, once a month, and it's a special menu made specifically for that day, unique menu and paired with our beers. And then we did, I think this past year, we rolled out, I think it was only 50 memberships of Draft Animals Platinum. And that was very, very high level, a lot of money, but you get a bunch of free stuff. There's like $1 drafts during Crafty Hour. And you get, I think, like 10 of the beer dinners already paid for. So you just select which ones you want to go to. So those people that were already super fans were already there, got doubly rewarded by purchasing the Draft Animals Platinum membership, and it pays itself off like right away. So I think, cultivating loyalty right now is really important. I think you guys all probably see that in the regulars that come in. You really want to make them happy because they're kind of the lifeblood. Obviously, bringing new people in is important too, but I don't think any of us can afford to lose clients right now, lose customers. And it's an opportunity to really kind of focus on customer care and customer retention, customer service, really, and build loyalty for years to come through these programs.
Very good. Reminder to our viewers, in 15 minutes, the winners will be announced for the two awards here. And Ryan, we'll take another question from the audience out there, please. Brian Brow. Additionally, his question starts, are there any emerging styles of beer you're eager to brew or explore? We'll start with Greg, even though you won't be brewing it, I guess.
Yeah. I feel like there's a lot still to be done in hybridization of styles. There's so many great classic styles that people are going back to, just like Jim said. I think people are starting to re-examine beers like Kolsch, Pilsner, Helles, and even people are going into stuff like Grotzer and smoked beers. I think people are kind of exploring those opportunities. Recently, smoked beers don't really sell, even if they're fantastic. So I think people are cautious with smoked beers. I do think that there's still lots of room for hybridization of styles, different yeasts, using a yeast that you wouldn't expect for that certain style and making it work in a really interesting way. I think playing with ingredients is always fun. And I think things emerge from that you wouldn't expect, and they kind of define themselves after a while. And I think we have a lot of ability in 757 to create new things and new styles, because we all kind of have that, curiosity about using different ingredients. And so many people use so many different ingredients in 757. I know that if I have a question about Kvike yeast, I can call Eric and he's going to tell me all about it. So maybe I have that information, and then I, wanted to apply it to some cool new style I haven't done before.
Well, a couple of our panelists have gotten up for a minute to get another beer or take a bathroom break. I'll mention a hybrid style with Norfolk NATO Festival last year. It was released this year, actually, that we did with Bold Mariner Brewing Company. And we did the collaboration with an Italian general stationed at NATO in Norfolk. And it was a beer wine hybrid, which apparently is a very popular Italian beer. It's a Saison style beer, but also brewed with white wine grapes from Italy. Have you heard of anything like that sort of hybrid, Greg?
Yeah, beer wine hybrids have been around for a while. I think Jester King's done some, and I think Side Project's done quite a few. They seem to do well, but they do also seem to be niche. So they're not going to be the beers that you're going out and sessioning with your buddies, but you can have really cool successes with them.
Yep.
And I think they're fantastic. They can be fantastic. So I think there's definitely a road for those to be a more regular part.
Yeah. I'm told by
We have
Sean
some pretty
Fisher,
decent
we're
wineries,
now on a 5-minute countdown. Russ, let me ask you about sort of hybrid innovations again, which was our question. What can you comment that you're seeing in terms of possibilities for Ouzelfinch?
Honestly, one of the things we started messing around with a lot last year was more how to better utilize honey in beer, and not only utilize honey for fermentation, but also for flavor. And so we, Rachel's been successful in she sent some beers to the Honey Summit this last time around and medaled in 2 of the beers there. I think one was Mike's and one was Rachel's. So I think that's something for us that we'd like to look more into, is kind of a Mead beer hybrid, but more specifically being able to get more flavor from the honey instead of just fermentable sugars. So that's where we see, one of the possibilities for us. Not a possibility; it's definitely something we're gonna be doing. But also having some time to kind of focus more on capturing and propping up some wild yeast and bacteria strains ourselves. Rachel has one that she's had for a couple of years now that we have successfully utilized in quite a few beers. But I think as things start moving along in the brewery and she's able to take some time away from there to do some other things, we definitely want to do more of yeast wrangling and some using some bacteria strains that are specific to Fort Monroe and have some type of connection there. So I think for us it would definitely be utilizing honey for flavor and then also doing some wild stuff.
Yeah. And for our listeners out there, I'll mention our friends over in Hampton at St. George Brewing Company have brewed a honey mead lager for the past 4 or 5 years, and every sort of award possibility they've had to enter that, they've always come home with something. So definitely honey is on to something, and there's a meadery up in Williamsburg as well. So and no shortage of bees so far here on the East Coast. Let's hope the honeybees survive COVID and global warming. All right, at this point, I'm going to ask Sean Fisher to come in and take over. Want to thank everybody for listening in to our panel discussion. I want to thank Russ from Ouzelfinch, Jim from Big Ugly, Eric from Benchtop Brewing Company, and Greg, who is moving on to Proximity Malts. You'll still see him around the breweries. He just won't be the guy squeegeeing the floor. So without further ado, give it up, everybody at home. Bang your beer cans together for Sean Fisher.
Hey, everybody. We're actually going to wrap this chat since we do have another link set up with our tool for the awards. So first of all, I want to thank Jeff Mazie very much from Beer Magazine and Virginia Craft Beer Magazine for coming in and moderating this wonderful panel. Also want to thank Russ Tinsley with Ouzel Finch for not only this panel, but everything. Russ, we may hear from you a little bit later on today. And then Greg Fleetheart, you've been a very strong ally with Beach Ambassadors and 757 Battle of the Beers. Thank you very much for your participation. Eric Tennant, same thing for you, my friend. Remember visiting with you before you opened, and you have done amazing things out there in the Chelsea district. Thank you very much for your participation, and I will be seeing you in the brew house for sure. And then Jim Lantry, what can we say? So glad you're not just a doctor, and you are a phenomenal friend, ally, and brewer confidant with the 757 and all your friends and teammates over there at Big Ugly. Thank you very much for your participation. So we're going to wrap this chat. You guys can sign out as well. And then we will hopefully see a few of you guys, if not all of you guys, at the award ceremony in just a few. Thanks again.